Welcome to the 9th episode of Spoken into the Ether, where you may hear a story about a man and his beard and his very pregnant wife. Earlier in this podcast, you may recall I read from a discarded chapter of my first novel and mentioned there was one more to come. What we have here used to be the 6th chapter of Everything Asian. In the published version, the story is told from the point of view of Mrs. Kim, the mother of the Korean family central to the novel. Definitely the right choice for the book, but it hurt to cut this out because I thought it was the best thing I'd written up to that point. So guess what? Now you get to listen to it. Here we go. The Beard. At the gate, Martha dropped her carry-on duffel and scanned the rows of smiling faces standing behind the velvet rope. She started from left to right, then right to left, and sighed. Her plane had landed half an hour late, so there was no reason why her husband would not be here to pick her up, unless, of course, he forgot altogether. Even by his standards, this would be low, but she had to admit it wasn't exactly beyond him. After spending 3 emotionally draining weeks with her mother in San Diego, all she wanted was to go home. She tried not to think of her visit, but images and sounds popped into her head regardless. Her mother's shrunken hands, less human and more chicken-like in both color and shape. The long, clear tube that ran into one nostril to nourish her when she had temporarily lost the ability to swallow. The throaty animal sounds during the night, a snore and choke combination that jolted Martha awake. The last 3 days were better ones to recall, when her mother had regained her ability to speak, albeit with a serious slur. Doctors and nurses assured Martha that she would continue to recover from the stroke, but that did not make leaving her any easier. Martha dragged her back toward the gleaming block of payphones. As she dug through her purse for the calling card, a hand grabbed her arm. "Gotcha!" The man who stood in front of her was as tall as her 6'2" Jake, as round as her pot-bellied Jake, except his face did not look like Jake at all. "What is this?" she asked, grazing his bearded face with her fingertips. It was a full, bushy thing that belonged on a lumberjack. His look of bemusement shriveled into an expression of confusion. "What do you mean? Don't you like it?" He made a second attempt at jolliness by tilting his furry chin with his thumb and index finger and looking away, like a model posing for a photograph. "Well, it's nice, right?" Jake asked, his tone rapidly deflating. "It's nice," she finally said. They waited for her 2 suitcases at the baggage carousel. There were many reasons why she did not like his beard, and later she would compose a list, but for now, as she stared at the side profile of this strange-looking husband of hers, the word that flashed like a neon sign in her mind was lazy. While she was away visiting her mother, what Jake had done for the last 3 weeks was not doing, and it was just like him to consider this inaction, this non-shaving, an accomplishment. "Where the fuck are these bags?" she said. "I'm sure they're coming," Jake said, moving closer to the bags, or more accurately, away from her. It could not have been easy taking care of the restaurant by himself. Lately it had been busier than usual, the evening crowd cramming into the bar to wait for a table to open up. And Martha certainly knew what it was like being in the house alone, the odd echo of the living room, their king-size bed as vast as the ocean. The cats would have kept him company, but the house was never right unless they were both there, their physical bodies occupying their designated spaces. She sidled next to him and leaned her head against his arm. "I'm sorry, I'm just tired." "I know. I missed you." He turned and cupped her cheeks in his hands and kissed her. It started out fine, his tender, moist lips reaching out to hers, but as he pressed closer, Martha felt like she was kissing a broom. "I missed you too," he said. She watched the carousel run its infinite clockwise loop, listening to the grinding hum of the conveyor belt. The prospect of spending the rest of her life with Jake's beard depressed her, but that was foolish. She'd seen him like this before, wholly devoted to some silly thing for a week, then just as suddenly dropping it like it never happened. She'd just have to wait it out. "Here they come," Jake said. Her identical paisley-patterned suitcases fell from the chute, one after the other, a thumping cascade of twins. Until the ultrasounds came back, Martha had no idea she was carrying two babies, and this worried her. Many things about her pregnancy worried her, but when she broke down her fears into smaller, more manageable components, all the arrows pointed back to the moment in the office when Dr. Silva had snapped the film onto his backlit board and displayed two distinct sacs in the grainy photograph, a pair of teardrops inside a black and white sandstorm. "Holy cow," Jake said. "Double your pleasure," Dr. Silva said, and the two men laughed heartily. All Martha could manage was a phony smile. The pregnancy itself had been a mystery, a statistical anomaly. Despite the pink birth control pill she had swallowed with military regularity, Jake's sperm had swum upstream to somehow fertilize her egg. And now this. Once again she felt betrayed by the creatures growing inside her. There were so many surprises waiting in the darkness of her womb, waiting to blindside her. "Are we ready?" Jake asked, sitting on a bench with a suitcase on each side, his palms draped over their corners easily, a king resting on his throne. Sometimes Martha wished she could be as relaxed as he was, letting the current of life carry her. She tried it before, but sooner than later she found her hands grabbing for the paddles. In the car, Jake briefed her on the status of the 15 plants and 2 cats in the house. This was the longest she had left him to his own devices, so naturally she had been concerned about the welfare of living things that required her daily care. Before leaving, she had numbered the plants for him, starting with the giant fern in the living room and ending with the African violet on top of the dresser. "Everybody's peachy," he said, his left hand dangling inside the steering wheel, his right patting her thigh. According to his count, there was only one casualty during his watch, and it wasn't anything alive. The paper lantern in their bedroom, the one above the nightstand, was accidentally punctured. "How?" Martha asked. "I bumped it with the watering can. You know, the plant on the windowsill is kind of hard to reach." Martha nodded, picturing Jake maneuvering around the corner table and standing tiptoe to reach the lip of the pot. If he had only used the stepladder like she asked him to, she should have leaned it there before she left. He had probably whirled around after watering the jasmine plant and ripped into the delicate shell of the lantern. Sitting next to Jake in the car, Martha half listened to him jabber on about Friday night's dinner menu. In the rich yellow glow of the late afternoon sun, the outlying strands of his beard sparkled gold. The beard did agree with him, bestowing on him a sense of maturity that wasn't there before. But that's exactly all it was, a sense, not a reality. And this became painfully clear to Martha the second she opened the door to their house. This time she could not help but to make a list. It was the only way she was able to deal with the onslaught of atrocities staring back at her. 1. Simba, the less finicky cat willing to immediately forgive her for the absence and therefore greet her at the threshold, looked fatter than ever. 2. The ficus tree in the foyer had shed half of its leaves. 3. The couch, moved for the sole purpose of being closer to the TV, was not moved back. 4. The other cat, Satra, was so thin her ribs poked out in discreet ridges. 5. The bottom of the jade plant on the living room windowsill was moldy due to overwatering. Moldy! In her detailed instructions, she specifically pointed out this danger. Martha found the hydrometer in the kitchen, in the exact place she had left it. Obviously, he had not even touched it, even though she had warned him that there was no way to assess the needs of the plants without the assistance of this device. Jake was lying on the misplaced couch, reading a book. "Did you even use this once?" she asked, holding it at the end of its long silver spoke. "Oh, hold on," he said, his eyes finishing a lengthy paragraph. She tilted her head to read the spine, The Lives of Ernest Hemingway. On the coffee table were other books, all biographies: Abraham Lincoln, Ulysses S. Grant, Frederick Douglass, Fidel Castro, and most ridiculous of all, a pamphlet by C. Everett Koop, the newly appointed Surgeon General. It did not take a genius to figure out the links between these famous men. All one had to do was stare at the covers and see the beards on their equally severe faces. Jake stuck his index finger between the pages, closed it, and looked up with the wondrous eyes of a kid in an amusement park. Man, this guy really knew how to live. You should read this. It's really fascinating. When he noticed Martha had no intention of replying, he sat up. "What's the matter?" She held up the hydrometer again. "Did you use this?" "Sure did. I found it in the exact same spot I left it." "Martha, I used it." "Then how come there's mold on the jade plant? It's as good as dead." "Mold?" "Really." She led him to the scene of the crime and pointed at the green and white fuzzy discs that floated on the surface of the murky water that lay in the pot. "I used it the whole first week," Jake said. "But then I got into a groove, like I could pretty much guess what the plants needed." Martha sat at the dining table and massaged her temples with her fingers, trying to stave off the full-blown version of the headache that had already started. "All you had to do was follow a simple set of instructions," she said. "I stayed up until 1 a.m. typing that up." "I'm sorry, honey," Jake said, sitting next to her, his hands rubbing her back in desperate circles. "Look, if it's any consolation, it could have been a lot worse. I mean, we have, 12 plants in this house?" 15. "Right, 15. And come on, if only one of them died, that's a pretty good ratio, don't you think?" She turned and gazed at him. "Are you trying to be funny?" "Well, yeah," Jake said, scratching his beard, a hair floating down onto the table. "Come on, I'll buy you a new one, a nicer one. It's not good for you to get upset." She kept peering into his brown eyes, saying nothing. She held herself back from stating the gruesomely obvious. "So if our baby dies, you're gonna go out and buy a new one too?" "What?" Jake said. "Look, I said I'm sorry. I'll do better, I promise." By nightfall, when her suitcases had resumed their lives of emptiness and the dryer in the laundry room was tumbling the moisture out of her clothes, Jake began making up for his domestic transgressions by way of their bed. Leaning naked against a mountain of down pillows, Martha lay on top of their pink cotton sheets and let Jake take care of her with his tongue. On the plane ride back, she'd imagined this exact scene, watching the top of Jake's head bob as he worked in a variety of pressures and angles, her own fingers clawing and bunching the sheets in unbearable ecstasy. Sitting between two strangers with this scene swirling in her mind had only increased the intensity of her fantasy, and now, as Jake performed her favorite maneuver, a rapid figure-8 motion with the firm tip of his tongue, she could feel her entire body swell up against the soft borders of her orgasm. Fantasy and reality were merging into one, and suddenly she was on the plane, the two strangers next to her, sitting oblivious while Jake continued to get her off. It was exactly at this moment that Jake went full steam ahead, plowing into her with his tongue extended, his timing impeccable. Martha greedily sank into the first wave of her orgasm, but as she felt his beard join in on the action, her airplane fantasy disintegrated, and instead she saw the portrait of the current Surgeon General, Dr. Coop, dressed in military regalia, his face as placid as still water. "Hey," Jake said, peeking up from below. "What happened?" "Nothing," Martha said. "It was great." "Really?" Even after 9 years of making love together, Jake remained vulnerable to the physicality of sex. It always touched her, this sweetness, like a boy asking if he did good. "Yeah," she assured him, "you were wonderful. Tiger." She pushed him down onto his back. Martha climbed on top and straddled him, letting him rock her into his sexual rhythm. But it just wasn't happening. Her mind drifted to the covers of biographies in Jake's collection. Lincoln's tall black hat, Hemingway's typewriter, Fidel Castro's limp cigar. By the time Jake finally came, she moaned likewise in a spirit of good sportsmanship. "I love you," Jake said, his words bringing her back. As she leaned over to kiss him, the candle sitting on the nightstand flickered and fizzled out, cloaking the room in darkness. She tried her best to concentrate on his lips and not to fuzz around it. Kissing him had always been a simple pleasure, linking the gentle warmth of his delicate pink skin with hers, and now it was ruined. "Martha, what, are you crying?" It was the kind of tears that fell silently and without any natural foreshadowing, as if they came from somewhere outside herself. She had not cried this way since she was a child, when so much of the world had seemed out of her control, but perhaps she was now making a habit of it. When she had seen her mother in the intensive care unit of the hospital, her reaction had been identical. Neither the nurse nor the doctor noticing her tears, until they rained onto the linoleum. The baby that turned into a pair of babies, her mother's instantaneous debilitation, and now this hirsute husband. There were too many things changing in her life at the same time. "It's your beard," she said into the darkness. "What?" "I don't like it." "But why? Does it poke you?" "I just don't like it. Please don't make me explain it. Not now." Ambient sounds of the house slowly became distinct and magnified as silence overtook them. The faint hum of the dryer, the tick-tock of the cuckoo clock in the hall, the distant song of crickets from the front yard. "You want me to shave it off?" The plea in his voice was unmistakable, like a child whose favorite toy was ripped away from his hands. Why was she always the bad guy? "Never mind," Martha said, sliding off him and nudging over to her side of the bed, curling herself away from him. The sheets were ice. Martha wrapped her legs around the long side pillow and wondered if her twins felt this coldness. At 4 months, probably not, but who knew? "It's just hair," he said, continuing in his tone of grief. "I've been keeping it nice and soft, for you. Can we just go to sleep?" He sighed, tossed and turned and sighed again. "You haven't even given it a chance." "All right, fine, whatever." "A week," he said. "Just try for a week, okay?" She said nothing. A week. She could stand it for a week. In her dream, she walked in the hairy forests of Jake's chin. With every rise and fall of his breath, the giant stalks of follicles wavered to and fro. These enormous brown trunks rose up to the clear blue sky like skyscrapers. But no matter how much she stared, she could not see where they ended. Jake opens his eyes and feels like he has not slept at all. The window shade dilutes the morning light. The white walls dulled into a mute, lifeless gray. Everyone is asleep, including the 2 Siamese cats who snooze at the corner of the bed with them. According to the red digits of the clock glowing back at him, it is 6:58, 2 minutes before the alarm. Since the night of her arrival from her trip 7 days ago, Martha has not made a peep about his beard, so in less than 2 minutes he expects her to wake up, stretch her arms, and tell him she wants it shaved off. He offered her a trial week to settle into his beard, and she has cooperated fully, accepting him without a single word of complaint. But now the conditions of their contract have been met. His time is up. Jake believes he has prepared for this moment, but when he imagines himself defending his stance to his wife, he's afraid she'll dismiss him easily, as she's done countlessly in the past. In the heat of conversation, Jake fears he may fail to convey his true feelings. He wants to tell Martha that he has never been successful at anything. This is not self-deprecation on his part, it's the honest truth. His restaurant has just started breaking even in the 10 years he's owned and operated it, and that's all due to Martha taking over the books. Without her help, he's sure the restaurant would have gone under by now. And it isn't as if he's some absent-minded genius of a chef who's bad with finances. The soups and appetizers he serves come pre-packaged in cans and shrink wraps from Cisco, and the dinner entree meats are all cooked up assembly line style, flame-broiled on the monster 12-foot grill. There is nothing spectacular about Hometown Grill in any way, not in its country motif decor, or the live weekend entertainment by thinly talented musicians, or the bland-faced waiters and waitresses who encircle their assigned tables. And this is just fine with Jake. He has never seen anything overly wrong with getting by. That is, until now. He can be mediocre at everything else, but he will not be a second-rate father. Like the mug that he just bought for himself as a reminder of his goal, he wants to be the greatest dad in the world. This realization did not come to him like a thunderbolt. Instead, it came gradually during Martha's absence, when he stopped shaving. It had not even been a conscious decision on his part to stop using the razor. It just happened, much like the baby's growing inside her. And this is where Jake believes his argument may fall apart. In fact, Martha would probably laugh at him because he wishes to draw a parallel between his beard and Martha's pregnancy. Like the child growing inside her, this beard that grows outside of him is his child. For the last 3 weeks, he has nurtured it from a tiny stubble to its current spirited fullness, trimming and brushing it every morning. Perhaps in the beginning the beard had been merely a symbol of his impending fatherhood, but it's much more now. It is the face of a responsible man, ready to support his family. If he were to explain all this to Martha, would it change her mind? If it doesn't, he has no idea what he would do. But he knows this much: he is not shaving off his beard. Never. The clock blares its ear-piercing 7 o'clock siren. Jake slaps the snooze button and resets the alarm for tomorrow. Next to him, Martha stirs from her slumber. "Good morning," he says, and he kisses her. She sits up, stretches, and stares at him with sleepy eyes. They're out of focus, a pair of round blue crystals bobbing in a sea of white. Then suddenly they zero in on him, locking onto their target. Jake's heart feels like it's about to pound out of his chest. He feels outnumbered, outmanned, outgunned, a helpless soldier waiting for the inevitable mortal blow from the impregnable enemy. "Hi there," she says. Jake plays back the morning as he drives to his restaurant. Martha brushing her teeth, washing her face, dabbing on her makeup. For breakfast, he served up a scoop of corned beef hash with 2 eggs, the yolks halfway between runny and soft-boiled, just the way she likes it. He told her to have a great day, and she wished him the same. Then she was gone, and Jake felt both relieved and confused, like a trapped mouse suddenly let loose for no apparent reason. It's possible that Martha has forgotten about this day, since she is, after all, a human being capable of making mistakes, although more likely she's up to something else. Jake believes he's found the answer. She's administering a final test to see if he's worthy of keeping his beloved beard. Before leaving for work, she asked him to do 2 things, and Jake is not taking any chances. This is the new Jake, one who does not wait to complete his given tasks until the last minute. That's why he stops at the pharmacy now to pick up the rolls of developed film for his wife. On the way to the store's counter, he passes by the aisle of infant products and pauses at a shelf. The bottom one is packed full with diapers of all varieties, the cushy rectangular bags stacked the long way to fit 2 layers, smiling, crawling babies staring at him. The top shelf is for smaller items, blue cylinders of baby wipes featuring an easy dispenser, orange bottles of baby shampoo guaranteeing a freedom from tears, a standing army of baby powder in 3 different sizes. Jake picks up the medium-sized one, turns the lid to match up the holes, and squeezes twice. He sniffs at the fleeting white cloud of talcum, its perfume mild and familiar. His parents used these very items to raise him, and now it's his turn to do the same for his own children. The idea of sameness between the past and the present feels wonderful and natural, like he's stepped into a familiar dance, sliding into a cadence of this innately human music. "Hey, beautiful," Jake says to the girl behind the counter. Her name is Mandy, the owner's daughter, who hates working here. She's fat and 15 and has an acne problem that no girl her age should be subjected to. "What did you say?" Mandy asks in her usual pissed-off way. "I said," Jake says slowly, "hey, beautiful." She stares at him with no expression whatsoever. "Are you trying to be funny?" "Nah," Jake says. "Just trying to get my photographs." Half past 3. The kitchen slows down enough for Jake to eat his own lunch. a grilled chicken sandwich on a sesame bun with a heap of home fries. Emilio, his full-time friend and part-time cook, who comes in Fridays and weekends, takes over the grill, filling the orders of latecomers. Jake pulls over a stool and sits down at the chopping table with his plate. He unseals a photo envelope, taking care not to leave wet fingerprints on the glossies as he extracts the slippery pile. The pictures are from Martha's trip to San Diego, though there's no way one can know that from the pictures themselves. They're all shots of his mother-in-law's room in her senior home, but without any variance in perspective. All were taken from the same exact spot, giving the photographs a detached, scientific feel. Viewed in order, these photographs are like the still frames of a movie. Catherine, her mother, looks barely alive in the beginning, with multiple tubes running into her nose and arms. But as time progresses, the tubes disappear, her bed is raised, a smile is attempted. On the very last picture, Martha joins her mother in bed, their heads bumping together, their fingers interlocked in a caress of hands. According to Martha, she took these photographs as a documentation of triumph, of her mother's eventual return to good health. This may be their intended purpose, but Jake notices an interesting byproduct. With every picture, there are subtle changes to the peripheral items in the background. Magazines, scattered haphazardly in one shot, are prettily fanned out in the next. A picture that was hanging slightly crooked is righted. Get well cards standing in no particular order on the shelf above the television are lined up in precise formation. Like the flip books of his childhood that simulated animation, Jake takes the stack of pictures and flicks through them, witnessing the orderly force of Martha in action. It's funny how everything in the room becomes aligned, and a little eerie too, as if by ghostly magic. Jake waits until exactly 4 o'clock to call Martha, the time for their daily check-in. She works at her accounting firm on Fridays, so he dials her number at the office. If she's there, she always picks up on the second ring. "Hello, sweetheart," Jake says. "Goodness, you're right on time. And with the photographs, too. They came out great. You already picked them up? Good for you. Did you get the lantern already, too?" The lantern. That was the second item he was supposed to get. He even had it written down on a list. But still he had forgotten. "Absolutely," Jake says, gazing at his empty lunch plate. "It's right here." "Thanks for doing all that, honey, and so quickly." "It's the new me," Jake says. And even though the lantern has rattled him, he forges ahead with his plan. "Hey, how about you drive down after work for dinner?" "Yeah? Why?" "Because I feel like making you a magnificent meal." "What about all the leftovers?" They volley back and forth on the phone, Martha telling him that after a long week of work, a calm, quiet, microwave reheated dinner sounds good to her. She's looking forward to putting her feet up on the coffee table and flipping through her backlog of magazines. At this point, Jake pulls out his secret weapon, a description of the meal in detail, a fancy 5-course Italian offering that Martha would have difficulty resisting. Spinach, apple, and pine nut salad to start them off. Then polenta baked with mushrooms and cream. Next would be a helping of broccoli, pancetta, and garlic, and the main course of spiced venison stew. And for dessert, chocolate almond truffle cake, which is already made. It would probably take him 2 hours to cook up the rest, but he still had the time, and he had Amelia too. "Geez, that does sound delicious, but you sure you want to do all that?" "For us," Jake says. "Anything." "Have you been drinking?" Very funny. "I'll see you at 7. It might be a little bit later, depending on what happens here, but It'll be close. After an exchange of I love yous, he hangs up the phone and digs out a small piece of paper in the breast pocket of his shirt. 1. Photos at pharmacy. 2. Round paper lantern, 12 inches. 3. Call M. He runs lines through the first and third items with a pen, wanting to feel a sense of accomplishment as the blue ink slices the black letters. But all he feels is disappointment at the untouched middle sentence. Before Jake leaves to buy the lantern, he catches Emilio standing over the venison stew, stirring it with such gentleness that it becomes comical. "You're laughing at me?" Emilio asks. "Looks like you're tending a bomb or something." "Have a taste of this bomb," he says, scooping a spoonful of the thick brown soup. Jake blows on it lightly. He sips it, runs it around his tongue, swallows. "Holy shit." "That's right," Emilio says. "If God shits, it would taste like this. Can't you just see the label on the can? Big white dude with a big white beard, sitting on his big white throne. Man, I should be working for Saatchi & Saatchi." Martha arrives 15 minutes after 7. Jake brings her to her seat at the corner table that's set with 2 forks on the left, 2 spoons on the right, and a small fork at the top. On the center of the table, 3 brilliant red roses float like lilies in a shallow crystal bowl. A pair of long red candles in silver holders cast a tender glow over the table. "What did I do to deserve all this?" Martha asks. "For being you," Jake says, pouring grape juice into her glass. "Just you." "We need to talk," Martha says from the bed, words that freeze Jake in the middle of his toothbrushing. "Okay," he mumbles, his mouth full of minty froth. He watches the mirror in the bathroom as he scrubs the bottom row of his teeth. So it had not been his imagination after all. During dinner, he knew something was wrong, but he did not ask. He had not wanted to ask. As he forked a slice of the almond truffle cake, he considered an idea that had previously eluded him, or perhaps an idea that he had realized all along but had not wanted to face. The only reason why Martha had not told him about his beard in the morning was because she wanted to be as accurate as possible, to wait until the exact hour when their contract would expire. Jake spits, rinses, splashes his face with cold water. He towels his face dry and looks again at his reflection, at his beard. Back in their bedroom, Martha has put away her magazine and is sitting upright, her position for serious discussion. Jake gets next to her. "What's up?" "Honey," she says, her eyebrows furrowing, her hands together as if in prayer. "I've tried, I really have. For the last week I have earnestly, truly tried to get used to that beard of yours. I find little hairs everywhere. Do you realize it sheds?" "No," Jake says. "I didn't know that." And he didn't. He didn't see this one coming at all. And he feels a cold drop of sweat rolling down from his left armpit to his waist. She takes his right hand and holds it between hers. "I'm not a fool, Jake. I know this beard means a lot to you. I've seen the books you got from the library. But the beard doesn't make you anything, do you understand? You are a good man without this beard." "It's my baby," Jake blurts out. Martha slowly releases his hand. And here he tells her his story with everything he's got. How it started to grow, much like the fetuses in her belly. How it just happened. How it is more than a symbol. He stops and Martha's laughter cuts into his confession. "That," she says, "is the most ridiculous thing I've heard." It's true, Jake says. Everything I'm telling you is true. It's from my heart. So what? Are we gonna have to go to a court of law to determine whether we can apply Roe versus Wade to the abortion of your beard? I wish I had a tape recorder. I mean, this is funnier than Carson. This is some real hilarious shit. It's on my face, Jake says, trying to keep his voice down, but failing, his frustration mounting. He gets out of bed and walks away. My face, not yours. It's not your business. It's mine. Not my business? Because I don't want to kiss a broom anymore? Martha jumps out of bed and follows him. How would you like it if you went away for 3 weeks and came back to find out I shaved my head? He looks down at his feet, out the window, anywhere but Martha. It's not the same thing, Jake says, but he can feel his resolve being chipped away. It's exactly the same thing, yes. Your body is yours. But because we are married, this ring here, Jake, that means we're married, right? You have to think of somebody else but yourself. And that's something you're going to have to get through your thick skull before our babies are born. Do you understand? I mean, really understand what the hell is going on here? Two very, very fragile creatures who have no ability to live on their own, are going to be our responsibility. Thinking that she's done, he meets her eyes to continue his feeble attempt at securing his viewpoint, but he's wrong. In the silence, she's been gathering herself for the words she's meant to say all along. This is not one of your many hobbies, not something you can abandon like your workshop in the garage, the model airplanes in the basement, the fucking coin collection, God knows what else. You, Jake, you're gonna have to grow up. Jake leans against the bedroom wall underneath the new lantern. I'm not shaving my beard. You think this beard gives you something, but it gives you nothing, makes you nothing. Fuck! He yells, punching the air and catching the lantern squarely, his fist ripping the flimsy rice paper. Neither moves or says anything until Jake walks over to the bathroom, opens the medicine cabinet, and comes back with a pair of scissors. He hands them to Martha. You want my fucking beard gone so bad? He says evenly. You shave it off, because I'm not going to. Martha looks at the orange-handled shears for a long time. When she looks up, she does not seem angry anymore, just tired. And for a moment, Jake believes she has relented. Fine, Martha says. She slips the scissors out of the case. Tip your head up. Like a blindfolded prisoner waiting for the fatal shot from the firing squad, Jake waits for the first cut. She can't possibly do this, could she? She couldn't possibly be this cruel. But then it comes out of nowhere, a little scream as the two metal blades squeeze together for the first cut. He stares out the window, but he can see her working through his peripheral vision, her face set like stone. He doesn't know exactly what he feels as she continues to snip away at his beard. Incredulity mostly, but also, in a demented way, admiration. This is the reason why he married this woman, because of her determination and the safety it once provided. But these emotions of shock are quickly replaced by grief. She has murdered a lovely part of him, but he will say nothing. She will never know how much she has hurt him because he won't tell her. That will be her punishment. As the door to his heart slowly shuts, he feels drops of wetness on his arms. Stop, he says, and she stops. Her dismay catches up with her tears, and she drops the scissors to the floor. Jake stares at the random clumps of hair on the carpet. He finds a pattern to their disarray, like seeing shapes in clouds. That could be a foot, he thinks, a tiny fist, a smile. He picks up the scissors. "What are we going to do, Jake?" Martha says, crumbling down, her head in her hands, rocking. "What are we going to do?" He walks over to the bathroom and stares at his reflection. Half of his beard is down to a patchy stubble, the other half untouched. What were they going to do? He doesn't have a fucking clue. It's a question that has no answers, a question that leads to more questions. All he knows is what he sees in the mirror. Jake opens a medicine cabinet and takes out his razor and shaving cream and applies a white foam to the stubbly side. It's been over a month, but it all comes off easy. Just a few close strokes. He runs his fingers across the skin of his freshly shaved cheek. Its smoothness surprising. Its smoothness is soft, he thinks, as the skin of a newborn. So there you have it, a couple in crisis, maybe? Or maybe not. I'm a sucker for ambiguous endings, so that's what we have here. The crux of the story survives in the novel, especially the shaving scene. It ends up being seen through the curious eyes of another character. A publication-related vignette. Glimmer Train was a well-regarded journal that ran for over 30 years, stopping press in 2019. I sent many stories to them, and this was the only one where I received a personal note from the editors. Back in 2008, I think. They thanked me for sending the story and told me they enjoyed it, but I guess not enough for them to publish it. The very definition of close but no cigar. Next time we return to the land of the published. Trespassing. Circa 2012. Until then, thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time. Spoken into the Ether is created by me, Sung Jae Woo. The lovely bits of music were provided by Lloyd Richards and his Transitions sound effects.